Can it even get out of my driveway? No, like this is a legitimate question. This is actually pretty difficult to do for the average driver. Are you gonna turn? Okay, all right. Yeah. Was this better than what the average driver would do? For sure. Better than me? No, because I live here and I go down this thing like 6 miles an hour, but I've done this thousands of times. Okay, if it can do that, I'm ready to close my eyes and let it drive me halfway across the city. This is a 2026 Tesla Model Y. It's a rental, that's why I slapped it. And it has on it full self-driving version 14.3.4, the latest and greatest, the state of the art. The clickbait question is not, can it drive itself? Because it can. It's been able to for like a year and a half now. The question is it any good? And honestly, the answer is not going to make anybody happy. Now, before Tesla fanboys accuse me of sandbagging, let me show you my receipts. In 2018, I took delivery of one of the first Model 3 performances off the production line, and I checked every box on that order page. $5,000 for enhanced autopilot, plus another $3,000 for something called full self-driving capability. $8,000 towards features that did not exist, but held the promise that they soon would. Perhaps I should have read the tea leaves, because by 2017, Elon Musk had already promised that a car would drive itself from Los Angeles to New York within months, but that didn't happen. It was a failed promise. Just young college me wanted to believe in something. And during my next few years of ownership, even more grandiose promises were made, mostly by Elon, none of which came to fruition. But the car itself was good, and the software did continue to get better. I was even slated to receive the new Hardware 3 computer retrofit by 2022, but my car was sold for a Model Y with the very same before it arrived. Not to be duped again, I did skip FSD as an outright purchase on my Model Y, but I did get the chance to give the very dangerous, very terrible FSD 10.2 a try under the newfangled subscription option. And it was clear to me that robotaxis were not soon to arrive. What did arrive was my slow migration out of the brand. First to a Rivian R1T, then an R1S, and right now, a 1997 Subaru K-Truck with air conditioning that's only partially functional while I wait for my Rivian R2. Don't worry, Rivian, take your time. So, look, I'm a Tesla fan in the same way that you're a fan of your ex. You're still on good terms. You're fond, a little wistful, curious, but kind of also mostly glad you're out. All right, here's another weird... Oh, that guy tried to go. Neener, we have the right of way. You stay there. That was good. The car went. It was a little hesitant because somebody started to pull out, but it had the right of way and it pushed through. That's good. Using FSD is almost insultingly simple. You set a destination, or don't, and press the blue Start Self-Driving button on the display. As long as you're buckled in and you're looking forward enough that the front-facing cabin camera believes you're supervising, you're good to go, with zero expectation that your hands will ever touch the steering wheel. Oh, look at that. It saw the construction upcoming. That was great, and automatically got over the lane. It saw that, honestly, sooner than I did, probably because the camera's higher up. What the car is seeing and how is genuinely unique. This car has no radar, no ultrasonic parking sensors, and no lidar. Tesla pulled radar out of the 3 and the Y in 2021, and the parking sensors the year after, betting the entire company on 8 cameras, 9 counting the new one that's in the front bumper, but nothing else. Every other serious player loads up on multimodal sensors, convinced that vision only is possible in theory, but in practice is insane. Now, Tesla's counter is that humans drive with 2 eyeballs mounted to a very slow gimbal, so cameras, plus a good enough brain, ought to be plenty. Here's the gambit. The same industry that calls that camera bet stubborn has entirely bought into Tesla's second one, the end-to-end neural network. Up through 2023, FSD worked like a bureaucracy of specialist programs passing memos down an assembly line. One module labeling the world: car, curb, cyclist, cone. The next predicting where everything was headed. And then at the end, a planner consulted hundreds of thousands of lines of handwritten code for a verdict. This is a roundabout. Yield to whoever's already in the circle. This is a 4-way. Proceed in arrival order. A rule for every situation an engineer could anticipate, typed out by hand forever. And as you can imagine, this didn't scale very well because the world is super complicated. And so with version 12, Tesla threw the whole thing out, replacing it with a single neural network trained on millions of human Tesla drivers. Doing, well, the one thing they do best. Or well enough. Driving. Photons in, steering and pedals out.
The technique, called imitation learning, shows the network real-world examples, grades its simulated outputs against what humans actually do, and then repeats the process to refine that output at a scale that no team of programmers could fathom writing by hand. And the end product is, well, driving that emerges more like a reflex than a rule book.
This little Subaru cut right in front of me. It slowed down gradually. That's really good. That's really good. He blazed it. That's another thing. Traffic pulling out in front of you, like cross traffic, it slows down if it needs to, but it just assumes, hey, they have velocity, they're getting out of my way, I'm just gonna let them go. And that's a great change from where it used to slam on the brakes. Same here. That mail truck took a while to get out of the lane, but it's like, it's cool, they'll be out by the time I get up there, and they were. And it's just, wow.
I've spent this whole video letting a computer do the driving for me, so it's only fitting that today's sponsor is the app that I use to let a computer do the typing for me, Whisperflow. Whisperflow is a voice-to-text tool, and it's a godsend everywhere, but particularly on your phone. Think about how much of your day gets thumbed out on this tiny little screen, texting friends, emailing clients, rage-baiting on Twitter. So instead, I just talk, and Whisperflow drops clean, formatted text right into the box, ready for me to hit send. Here's me writing my buddy the verdict on this car out loud in about 10 seconds. And before you say, my phone already does that, well, built-in voice writes down every and stumble, it chokes the second you change your mind mid-sentence, it doesn't handle rapid talking like this, and it butchers any name it hasn't seen. Whisperflow kills the filler, handles it when I backtrack, and spells the names right the first time. And because there is a fine-tuned LLM doing the cleanup, it's not just transcribing, it's editing. When I list items out, it creates a list. When I fumble over my words, it uses the ones I intended to. It's the difference between a tool that types what you said and one that types what you meant. Here's a real email to someone that I work with, dictated on my phone. Notice Whisperflow knows an email should sound like an email, formatting the whole thing without me lifting a finger. I've got it mapped to my action button, so I squeeze it and I'm dictating in any app, lock screen, or wherever else. My viewers get 1 month of Whisperflow Pro for free at the link below. Use it for a week, and I promise you will resent your keyboard. Now, back to the car. Version 14's network is reportedly about 10 times the size of the one I tested last year, with reinforcement learning folded in. So the system is even capable of improving beyond the imitation ceiling. In other words, as Elon tells it, it's better than any human driver. Thing is, a model that size with a network so expansive lives in the data center, not in a chip behind your dashboard. So, like with AI models, distillation is required. You take the trained enormous teacher model running on that data center hardware, and then you train a smaller student model that mimics the teacher's outputs until most of the capability survives in something compact enough to run on the car, squeezing, in effect, the maximum brain power through the minimum straw width. This means that none of the learning really happens in car. Not really. None of it happens in car. Nothing is phoning home when the car drives. What phones home is the fleet after the cars are parked. Millions of cars quietly uploading clips, especially the moments where a human grabbed the steering wheel and overruled the system, feeding the training to run for the next version, which sounds abstract, but that's only until you see it happen.
Hey, well done. Okay, I don't know if it did this on purpose, but this is technically a one-way parking lot. And rather than just go the fastest way to the street, it is going around. There's a big squirrel. Will it run over the squirrel? I hope so. They're an invasive species. The red squirrel. Oh! You can't turn there. That's not a way to go. Okay, it's backing up. Will you go left? It does. Okay. So it did try to drive into the fence. I don't know why it even tried it. It was clearly there, but it recognized it made a goof. It backed up and went the right way. Human-like? No. But not bad. Not bad. Oh, well, hold on. We're going around again. Whee! We might have truly made it get stuck. Is it just going to keep going around and around? Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, it wants to. My brother, you can't go that way. And it recognizes it again. It backs up. I think we might have truly pigeonholed FSD. Run over the squirrel. Do it. It didn't. All right. Let's see if it leaves. Nope. I'm gonna have to take over. Okay, that's a good example of where, it still struggles a little bit. Parking lots are tricky. They're non-standardized. Every parking lot is different. And I hear from many FSD owners that parking remains the weak point of FSD. If that's the worst it gets, that's not too bad. But you're not shipping a car without a steering wheel next week, I'll tell you that much. Parking, look at that. And I just filed it as an issue, and sure enough, their model will probably look at it, flag it, and then fix it for the future. That's the advantage to neural nets.
But I cannot overemphasize how much that clip is not the norm.
We're at a stop sign where we have to yield to oncoming traffic, which there is none. It creeps forward and then proceeds. Very good. Ooh, this is interesting. There's oncoming traffic, but it's quite tight through here. Will it dodge to the right? Yes, it does. Yeah, that's really good. That's really nice. And will it tuck itself in at the... Yep, it does. It gets out of the way for this other Tesla. Hello. They're touching the steering wheel. They're not on FSD. And it's hesitated because it sees that this guy is doing a U-turn. Wow. That was great. See, these are the types of things that happen on the road that a couple years ago, this would have just fallen apart with the earlier versions of FSD, but it's gotten really, really good. The other thing that it's great at, reaction time. As soon as the light turns green, it's gonna send it. It is way faster to react to light changes than basically any other person would be. And I love that because, old systems, it would be like, well, are they going? If they're going, then I guess I'll go. And this time it's like, it's green, go. It's great.
This is the worst exit.
Yep, this is a very challenging exit because you have people speeding up on the right side, we're slowing down, you're trying to interleave traffic. It's honestly really stressful as a human driver. I hate driving right here, but the car just did it really nicely. Way to go. Yeah, this is a great example of something that it's gotten so much better at. We're coming up to the stoplight and it's decelerating very gradually and it's gonna roll into a stop like basically with no tapping of the brakes. Oh, that is smooth. That's good. Wow. All right, we're back at the roundabout. Do we have any traffic coming up the hill? We sure do, this Volkswagen, but after that it goes. It's just the confidence it exudes is so much higher. And it does so comfortably. It's not exuding confidence falsely. It really is hyper competent. All right, a right-hand turn. Took it nice and slow because it's a pretty steep turn, but it's accelerating out of the turn. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Really nice. All right, this is kind of a weird one because you have traffic trying to get right, so it is slowed down. Also because traffic has stopped. So you'll see, is it gonna let this truck in? Yep. What about this Subaru? Because he wants to get in. They're signaling and it is gonna let him in. It's very courteous. I wouldn't have done that. I would have said tough beans. But it does it. Stop. And then it will proceed. Oh, we've got a cyclist. Oh, look at that. It saw him. As someone who has biked on this, a lot of human drivers will not do that. So that's a good call. And now we're going. This is not a smooth enough road to be going 40 miles an hour on, but okay. The biggest complaint I had about previous versions of FSD was not that it was an illegal driver, because it wasn't. It generally followed the law quite well. It was that it wasn't that good of a driver. It was a little jerky, it was a little twitchy in steering situations. And while they're not completely gone, it is significantly smoother. Like handling that bus, it wasn't super hesitant, it didn't jerk the wheel. It was super, super smooth and confident. Really, the only area where that changes is with cyclists. But honestly, that's pretty good. It's just gotten so much better. This is way better than the average Uber driver. It really is. I've been in some absolutely wretched Ubers, and this is not one of those. Pretty good endorsement. Now, do I think that I am a better driver than FSD? Yeah, but that's also because I feel overconfident in my driving. Most drivers do, and I'm in my own neighborhood. I have familiarity with where we're driving, but if I was driving somewhere that I had never been, I would be very tempted to just give the wheel to FSD because the confidence that it's demonstrating for this rather difficult navigation and terrain is pretty good. We've got a lot of traffic, weird roads, steep grades, and it's just going, man.
By contrast, I spent the last week riding Waymos around San Francisco. Waymo is the belt and suspenders inverse of everything that I just described. LiDAR, radar, and cameras fused together, driving on high-definition maps inside a geofence at a hardware cost per car that would make your eyes water. And credit where it's due, Waymo is doing a really hard thing. Nobody is in the driver's seat. Waymo carries all of the liability. Not all that dissimilar from Tesla's nascent robotaxi network, but Waymo is doing roughly 500,000 paid rides every week across 10 cities and growing. That is a real, operating, driverless car business, and Tesla has nothing even remotely at that scale, despite Elon's continued promises to the contrary. But here's what surprised me. As a passenger, the Waymo was almost universally less comfortable. It was jerkier, more hesitant, more robotic, less elegant than the system in this $45,000 rental car, which is smoother than it has any right to be, given that it's working from cameras and a neural net with no map crutch, and it can go anywhere you point it. And you can't even really blame Waymo's issues on safety precautions either, because our Waymo did two things that made me feel genuinely unsafe. It ignored a green light blocking traffic behind it because it wanted to turn left where it wasn't supposed to, and when it did finally turn, it nearly drove up on the curb mere feet away from pedestrians. Now, San Francisco is a weird city with a lot of gotchas. There's no turns at certain intersections at certain hours of the day or days of the week. There is limited vision due to inclines and declines. There's tons of cyclists and pedestrians everywhere. There are aggressive bumps and ditches, all edge cases where FSD does tend to struggle. But while Waymo solved a particular city's peculiarities, Tesla solved the creation of a driver. The industry is still fighting about which problem is the right one to solve first, but given Tesla's rate of improvement over the last 12 months, and given the fact that my Waymo a couple weeks ago was about the same as the Waymo I took 2 years ago, my money ain't on Waymo.
Lane changes and all that stuff is great. One thing that it has improved on is predictive action. It's starting to get a little bit more crowded on the freeway, and like a year ago, FSD would just chill in the leftmost lane and then it'd be like, oh crap, I gotta get off the freeway. Go right, go right, go right, go right, go right, and try to cross 8 lanes of traffic and it would miss the exit. Does not do that anymore. We need to get off in a mile, and it started making its way over about half a mile back, which is great.
But that's not to suggest that the system is perfect. It isn't. It's just that most of my little niggles aren't because it did something unlawful or unsafe. It's just something kind of goofy or inefficient that cost me time. Like what it did right after the previous clip where I bragged about how quickly it got over in anticipation of our freeway exit.
Is that it doesn't seem to treat an arc as an arc. So, whoop, whoop, it just missed the exit. I don't know why. Huh. Well, there's not an exit for quite some time, too. So that was a real boo-boo. And it's getting back into the leftmost lane. Why? You need to get over. All right, we've got a green arrow, no yield. Well, it turned yellow, but it went, which is good. And now we're gonna have to get to the rightmost lane to get into the McDonald's, which it does. Good job. And now we're going to slow down to turn in here and make another right hard turn. This is a tricky situation, especially because there's another car there. Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Nope. It said, never mind, and I'm gonna park you not at McDonald's. Where is it going? It's not going where the map told it to go. We just doing our own thing out here. Parking lots, man. It's parking lots. Really struggles with them. Holy crap, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Oh, the car behind me. Ah! Whoa! That Ford was like, what are you doing? We're turning around in the middle of like a pretty crowded area. Oh, okay. Welcome to McDonald's. McDonald's is way over there. But that's as good as we're gonna get, I guess, because it missed the turn in. All right, so this is now our second time around the park, third. It very specifically wants to find street parking right here, because that, I think, based on the mapping software, is where it says the park is, but it's not. It's the whole perimeter. When we had arrived here, I said, park at the parking lot, and it was trying to find a parking lot that did not exist. So it just kept looping around, and then I was like, oh, my bad. I need to tell it to park on the street. But despite there being a lot of street parking, it's like, oh, the park's not right here. The park's in the middle. It might even be trying to park literally in the middle of the park. But you can't do that because it's a park. So it's gonna just turn right and then pass all of these perfectly fine parking spots because it's like, well, nope, that's not where we're supposed to go. So that's kind of stupid. Speaking of routing, it's not great. That's my biggest complaint with FSD. It drives in some of the wackiest directions because they're using their own routing system rather than Google Maps or Waze, and it's not very good. It's ironic that this is a car literally driving itself, and the worst part about it is that sometimes it goes a way that I think is a dumb way to go. I guess that's an endorsement of how good it is. It did take that corner a little fast, probably faster than I would have, but not uncomfortably so. It was fine. All right, I'm gonna try the new Summon. The car is way over there, and all I have to do is push come to me, and theoretically, it's gonna start driving. It does show you a real-time camera feed now, which is handy. Sure enough, it's driving. Oh boy, this is scary. That Mercedes decided to not drive down the lane, which is good. But it is completely empty. There are people around. It has its hazards on. And here it comes. Boy, that's a strange sight. A car with nobody behind the wheel. And yet, it has done it. I'm holding it down. Is it gonna stop in front of me? Yeah, it does. So it's completely stopped and I'm ready to go. I feel like an idiot because I've totally blocked all the traffic here, but you know, that's fine. Oh, shoot. Sorry. And now we've got to go because there's people behind me. Oh, stressful.
Why then can a car with nobody behind the steering wheel navigate across a crowded parking lot with pedestrians and traffic and shopping carts and more to come get me? But then when I go out on the road, it says, no, you better watch the road, you better not take a nap. Because it's demonstrated that it can mostly do that, right? Well, the answer is stop signs. Huh? Yeah, every single time this car stops at a stop sign, it stops completely at the bumper line and sits there for a couple of seconds before slowly rolling forward to accelerate. It's perfectly lawful, but also completely inhuman. We got stuck behind a Tesla that was clearly an FSD driving to the airport in San Francisco in a rental car, and it was insane. I wanted to die because it was so slow. It'd roll up to the stop sign. Stop. What a nice day. All right, I will proceed. Okay. Almost nobody drives like that, which means the car didn't learn to do this from it watching us. It was installed by force. Early FSD builds actually did slightly roll stop signs like human drivers until NHTSA leaned on Tesla in 2022 and forced a recall of nearly 54,000 cars to delete the behavior. Tesla's own recall filing reported 0 crashes, 0 injuries, 0 anything from rolling stops, but the feature was recalled for being illegal by design. The regulator's phrase for it was, quote, intentional design choices that are unsafe, end quote. Now hold that up against this. You actually cannot modulate your maximum speed. You can only choose between one of 5 speed profiles, Sloth on the slow end and Mad Max on the upper end. And one of the things that bothers me about this is that it doesn't just dictate your maximum speed, it dictates your rate of travel and acceleration and deceleration and how aggressively you change lanes. And so if you go with Sloth, that'll stay under the speed limit, but then you never change lanes and it takes forever to accelerate. But if you choose a more aggressive profile, it'll just speed like a psychopath through the neighborhood, and that sucks. I want to be able to do both, to drive under the speed limit, but then to also change lanes aggressively. And right now, you just can't. It's my biggest complaint with FSD. See, we are hauling up this hill because I'm in hurry mode. Speed limit's 30, it's going 33. It accelerated quickly, which I want, but I don't want to speed. So a 2-mile-per-hour roll through an empty intersection is a federal recall, but a factory speed profile that does 10 to 15 over through a residential neighborhood is a feature that's just A-okay? I wondered whether the difference was some legal technicality, the gap between a moving violation and a speeding ticket, but I think the real answer is actually simpler, and NHTSA said it out loud when they started asking Tesla about the Mad Max mode last fall. Quote, the human behind the wheel is fully responsible for driving the vehicle and complying with all traffic safety laws, end quote. There it is. The rolling stop was Tesla's code making Tesla's choice, recalled despite a spotless record. The speed profile is a menu you tapped, so the speed belongs to you. Tesla built their software so that it can break the law, the same way humans do, but then they routed the legal consequences to the human, and that is supervised self-driving in a nutshell. I spent all day, by every measure as a passenger, hands in my lap, decisions made by me, while remaining the driver in the only sense that a courtroom actually cares about. Every mistake in this video was, on paper, my mistake, even though I provided none of the inputs. So why hasn't Tesla flipped the switch to eyes off then? Well, despite what Elon parrots on Twitter and his lemmings repeat, it is not because of regulation. Most states permit supervised systems here in the United States, and roughly half of those states affirmatively welcome autonomous vehicles. And in Utah, where I'm filming this, we passed our law on that back in 2019, unanimously. The wall is the word from earlier, liability. The moment that Tesla tells you to stop watching, every one of those mistakes shifts from you to them, which gets very expensive very quickly. A Miami jury found Tesla partially liable for a fatal autopilot crash to the tune of a couple $100 million for a single crash, upheld this February in federal court. And federal regulators have an open investigation, one step short of recall, covering more than 3 million of these cars. Exactly one automaker ever has accepted eyes-off liability on a car that you could buy here in the United States. That is Mercedes, at 40 miles per hour in 2 states. And this January, Mercedes pulled it. They killed the program. The only company that ever held that grenade quietly was like, yeah, no thanks. They set it back down. Now, Mercedes' system was nothing compared to Tesla's, but Tesla does carry an anchor that Mercedes never had to. Roughly 4 million older cars on Hardware 3, with owners who paid up to $15,000 for full self-driving, and about which Musk finally admitted this April that, quote, they simply do not have the capability to achieve unsupervised FSD. I wish it were otherwise, end quote. I bet you do. Because remember distillation? As I was writing this video, Tesla shipped version 14 Lite, the big model's behavior squeezed onto that old 2019 computer, which, while genuinely impressive, does admit that you don't build a light version for hardware that has much of a future. And there's another gotcha that subscriptions buy them too, right, coincidentally, as they're teasing their next-gen AI5 hardware platform. When a subscriber's car ages out, they just cancel. And you don't owe a retrofit to someone who was only ever renting a supervised system that never promised eyes off in the first place. None of this erases Tesla's real competitive advantage. Nothing like FSD exists on the road today, and it is genuinely remarkable how good it is. But most people won't care until they no longer have to watch the road at all. Adoption rates speak to this. And between the lawsuits, the 4 million depreciating cars, and a clean sheet rival shipping newer sensors, my R2 is promising hands-free FSD-style point-to-point driving by year's end, something that I'm still skeptical of, but it's a thing that they're promising. One question becomes worth asking, and it's a pretty simple one. Is that lead that Tesla has today enough to carry them to the eyes-off finish line first? Will someone else with no baggage like Rivian beat them to it? Or does this march of nines, each one exponentially harder than the last, simply take so long to shrink that liability into something swallowable that eyes off for everyone stays a someday problem for years to come? It's seeming to me to be more and more that will be the case. It's not about who can solve FSD, it's about who's willing to accept liability when something goes wrong. And it's not going to be insurance companies.
FSD version 10, the first version I drove with a few years ago, was legitimately awful. It tried to kill me multiple times and committed a huge litany of traffic violations in the process. Version 13 that I drove last year was actually pretty good. I mean, it didn't break any laws, it just didn't feel that confident, didn't feel that comfortable. Version 14 is a massive improvement. It feels like a good driver. It still does some dumb things, like for example, I need to be in that lane to turn right there, and it's not, and I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a thing. But it feels more confident and calculated in everything that it does. It's smooth. It exudes really, really excellent lane changes and turns and acceleration and deceleration. It's not twitchy, it doesn't overreact. It drives very human-like. And while no, it's not as good as a human driver at a human driver's best, I think it's a lot better than the average human driver at their worst. And if you put the two together, a human driver paying attention, supervised with an already great system, I think you honestly reach superhuman capabilities. It's a really, really safe system. And I'm probably gonna cut this lady off. Oh, that's a dick move. Sorry.